Hi, and welcome to the third video in the series on security for Prague 1210 Rapid Application Development. In the previous video, we created a registration for users that they can come and sign up on our website, and we successfully created them in the user store via the user manager object. So what we're going to do now that we've created our new user is log them in. Now we're going to be using OWIN to authenticate our users, but before we can use OWIN for authentication, we have to set up OWIN in our application. So what we need to do is create an OWIN startup class. So I'm going to go over here to my Solution Explorer, right-click on the name of my project, and I'm going to add a new item. And we could just search through the list here for Visual C# until we find an OWIN startup class. You'll see they're listed alphabetically. Here's our OWIN startup class. We'll give it a name here. I'll call mine OWIN startup. So the OWIN startup class contains configuration information for how our authentication is going to work. So what we're going to put in here is a bit of code that just configures our application for using application cookies as a way of authenticating the users. Now, in order to call the methods that we need a few using statements in here. You can see that it's already using OWIN, but we are going to include a couple of other using statements. The first one is using Microsoft.owin.security.cookies, because we're going to be using cookie authentication. And the other statement that we need uses Microsoft Identity. So now we're going to add in that function call on our application object here to tell our application to use cookie authentication. You can see the parameter here is a list of cookie authentication options. The options that I'm going to implement are authentication type, cookie name, login path, logout path, and expire timestamp. I'm just going to pause the video while I get the rest of this typed in here. Okay, so I've set up our 5 authentication type options here. The first one, authentication type, says that we're using a cookie. The next one gives our cookie a name. Login path and logout path explain the default of where you're going to go after logging in or logging out. So this is a pathway to an ASPX page in our site. And the last one, the time span, tells us how long our cookie is going to last. So in this case, I've set up the cookie to last for 10 minutes. I'm going to build our site so that the OWIN startup class gets registered there. And now we can go back to our registration page and write our login code. So first up, for logging in, we're going to create our authentication manager object. And in order to create that, we're going to get our current OWIN context. So this is where our OWIN startup class comes into play. Our context here, we want our current context, our OWIN, and authentication. So that's the first step. The next step uses our user manager to create a user identity object. This is our user identity coming from our user manager. Create identity. I'm going to create an identity based on our new user that we created above here. And the second parameter, the authentication type, is going to tell us how we're authenticating the user. So just like in the OWIN startup class, we're using default authentication types application cookie. We switch back to our startup class, you'll see that here as well. So the authentication types have to match up. So there's our user identity object. And now all we need to do is take our authentication manager and sign in our user. So after this little bit of code here, our user is now signed in, and we can redirect them on to the rest of our site. Now in this particular site, I'm going to redirect signed in users on to the welcome.aspx page. So we'll use our response.redirect code and we'll send them on to welcome.aspx. So there's our little bit of login code on the registration page. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to register a user using a role.